Hello, this is Beth Reynolds, the voice of Cosmic Geppetto. Yes, my parents are proud. You know that beep sound that protects your ears from dirty words? We're giving that beep sound a break this episode. There's going to be cussing. A lot of it. Might want to send the kids out of the room. If you have delicate sensibilities, come back next episode. The beep will be back.
Jessa?
Yeah, Murren?
Did you feel that?
A sense of foreboding and dread?
Yeah. Do you think it means...
Brad's writing a skit.
Fuck!
Hello?
Jessa, it's Amy.
You felt it too?
It's bad. I think he's gonna do a song.
Fuck.
Yeah, fuck. I got a call. Should I conference it in?
Do it.
Hello?
It's Beth. Did you feel it?
Felt it.
Felt it.
Fuck!
Fuck.
Fuck.
Fuck!
Shut up and go back to reading Grapes of Wrath.
Okay.
It gets worse. He has Shawn working on a new theme song, and I think it's driving him mad.
On the page, it looked nothing. The beginning simple, almost comic. Just a pulse, bassoons and basset horns, like a rusty squeeze box. Then suddenly, high above it, an oboe, a single note hanging there, unwavering, till a clarinet took over and sweetened it into a phrase of such delight. This was no composition by a performing monkey. This was music I'd never heard, filled with such a longing, such an unfulfillable longing. It seemed to me that I was hearing the very voice of God.
Was that an Amadeus quote?
I think it was.
Oh no.
What's wrong?
What is it?
We're already in the skit.
Dear God.
You're right.
Fuck.
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 Hey guys.
Jarf, what are you doing here?
Apparently it's in my contract that I appear at the end of these skits.
This is the end?
Yeah.
Kinda weak.
Well, let's be honest. Brad's been phoning it in since episode 175.
True.
Agreed.
I noticed it starting at 163.
Well, see you in the funny pages.
From Geppetto Studios in New Freedom, Pennsylvania, welcome to the Cosmic Geppetto Podcast, your home for inclusive, positive geek culture, where we talk about movies, comics, music, books, and whatever else we feel like. Please welcome your host,
For God's sakes, you're such an ass.
Brad Mendenhall.
Hey kids, it is the 200th episode of the Cosmic Geppetto Podcast. Just saying that makes me tired. We have more fun than you can handle. Honey, Badger, and her amazing friends have reunited. It was a great conversation. Katie hasn't been able to do a lot of recording lately because of some non-podcasting situations, so we're very excited, especially to get her and Mike Watson together again. Anywho, fan favorite Thaddeus Howze returns to talk about the first season of the Hulu show Solar Opposites.
Well, and you said it before, Rick and Morty is one of the best sci-fi shows on TV, and it shouldn't be. It should be what's making fun of the great science fiction shows.
Pretty much everything that Rick does is an anti-trope. He subverts every kind of trope. Wherever he is able to do so, he does. There was one recently where they were walking through a temple. They were doing a Raiders of the Lost Ark, but rather than spend all this time jumping around and dodging mines and spitting darts and rolling balls, they just put on these 2 force fields and walked right through the temple to the tomb and did the grave robbing in like 3 seconds. I thought it was a great subversion of the entrapped tomb. And that scene even makes fun of itself, because the mummy asks, who creates a tomb self-destructs over the person they're supposed to be taking care of? You remember that?
Oh, yeah, and it's so true, where those tropes and those mousetrap-esque, over-designed death traps, is like, this doesn't actually make any sense aside from the fact to look cool while Indiana Jones or whoever is trying to escape them. Is like, oh, it's great. First off, how do you reset it if you use it once?
Yeah, is it self-aware so it knows, well, we killed the guy in the first 3 seconds, so we don't need to use any of the rest of them. Do the natives reset it? I mean, and if they do, how do they reset it without tripping it off? Do they know? I guess they know where everything is, so they would know what to step on. And I guess if Rick and Morty were really trying to be funny, they might actually make fun of that. Rick has an algorithm that will let him walk completely through the place untouched because he's the smartest man in the universe. He can do that kind of thing. I just thought it was intelligently subverting by having Rick do that, because it makes all of that Indiana Jones stuff just look ridiculous. And I've always thought it was kind of ridiculous.
I have loved some of the Indiana Jones movies, but they are definitely movies where even the good ones have enormous plot holes. But you get pulled into the movies. He's like, oh, it's Harrison Ford. He looks cool, and the action's so well put together, and
he's a likable character.
Yeah. So it's like you ignore it, and that's fine. And the movie serials that those movies were inspired by also had the same ridiculousness.
They did.
Stuff that you love and stuff that you can enjoy, it's okay to make fun of it. Rick and Morty shows real affection for those. You can't make fun of those tropes unless you love them enough to pay attention.
And that's why they work. And that's why Rick and Morty is probably one of the greatest love stories to pop culture since Futurama. Deconstructed everything you loved and made it completely ridiculous, and yet you were okay with it because you knew what they were making fun of. And I think that's why Futurama couldn't last as long as Simpsons did. Because Simpsons is about us. It's literally about us today. And Futurama is about a better us that isn't quite as better as it should be. I think that's why it was funny, because it made fun of all the things that we claim we want to be. Truth be told, we'd be just as petty and awful as we are in the present.
Fry, he ends up living with Bender, and Bender he's a robot. He's an AI marvel, and he just likes drinking and whoring and, and smoking cigars.
That Fry would do if he had any spine at all, right? He is Fry's dark side. He's murderous, he's egocentric, he's narcissistic, he's completely sure of himself, yet he has no redeeming social qualities except that he's a good friend. I think that's the only thing that Bender can say for him, is that he's a good friend. He's a bad person, but a good friend. Even when Bender is misbehaving and being bad, you can expect him to be bad because that's how he still come through for after he sells you into slavery.
We've all had that friend who was like,
God bless him.
Yeah, they'll show up at the exact right time, and they'll help you in the right moment, but they suck. You know they suck.
You know they suck. That's right. I'll have at least one of those. They were reliable, but not really. You could depend on them. There was nobody else. Here you go. They're the person you call last. They'll help you, but they're the person you'll call last. That's that friend.
They're also the one who you have the best stories about them.
Yeah, you do.
As long as you survive your interactions with them, it's like, oh, it's so great. You're not going to believe how close I came to... Daddy almost had a record, son.
Yeah, it's that friend. I think that's why Rick and Morty and Futurama, they get over. Because they talk about those things, and they are perfectly willing to make fun of them, though they're making fun of them, forgive them, because the affection you have for that thing, especially if that thing hasn't been around in a while.
So how did you like Solar Opposites? Because it definitely has a Rick and Morty feel, but it was different. It's on Hulu, and the history of the show is pretty interesting. It was originally supposed to be a Fox show. It didn't get picked. It was too insane for Fox.
So the first thing I had to do was divorce myself from the voices, because they use the same voice actor. So I had to remember that I'm supposed to be looking at different people. I kept having that moment of hearing Rick's voice and expecting Rick's behavior. So it took me a minute to divorce myself from Rick and Morty. After I divorced myself from Rick and Morty and started feeling Corvo, and I was able to do that divorcing, was able to start enjoying them what they are. And I came to the realization that Polar Opposites is a show about monsters who want to be humans who are really quite monstrous. And for me, once I was able to make that connection, I was good. I'm good. These guys are they're monsters. And for all their complaints about humanity, are really doing everything in their power to be human. All the humans we see on the show are all terrible people. They really are. They're never like the first time something bad happened to a human on the show. I was like, I'd feel bad, but you were terrible. You're a terrible person. You could die, and I won't feel bad. And I realized this show wasn't going to have the body count that Rick and Morty had. It ain't for lack of trying, because the underlying premise of the show is kind of horrific. Because these two children kidnap humans, put them in their ant farm, and just leave them there. They're in the wall, and it's a terrarium / prison camp / hellhole, and it's awful. The wall is awful. And it shows humans at their least evolved, where they're much more primitive and much more bloodthirsty. And the thing I like best about the wall, though, it grew on me. You didn't see it very much in the beginning. The more we saw of it, the more I wanted to see of it. Eventually, when we get about halfway through the series and we're actually spending as much time in the wall as out of it, I began to realize just how dark a story this was. And Solar Opposites is just as dark as Rick and Morty, but in a different way. It's a family-oriented darkness. I know that seems weird, right? But it's a family-oriented darkness. It's Rick and Morty is a family, but it's mostly about Rick and Morty.
It's really Rick avoiding the family.
It's Rick avoiding the family. In Solar Opposites, we have a family that no matter how awful they are, they always come back together. And no matter how awful their circumstance, they always pull together to solve their collective problem, whatever that is. That makes them very different than Rick and Morty, because he recognizes without his family, he would probably kill himself. His family, they'll drive him to kill himself. And so he can't spend too much time with them. He has to spend just enough to remember he doesn't stay there all the time. Is drawn to his family, but not in a positive way. I think what makes Solar Opposites different is that they like being a family, except when they get on each other's nerves, like real family members. I mean, that was the thing I liked about it, was that I found their actions very family-like, very much problematically driven. In the case of the replicants or the children, very much sibling-rivaled, and their psychology is that of children seeking dominance over each other and everyone around them. It's different than Rick and Morty. When Rick and Morty first came out, they had a strong affinity because they were so dark and nihilistic. By the third or fourth episode, you knew that there was nothing going to be safe or sacred. And I think in this show, they've a slower approach. But by the end of the series, you realize it's going to just be as dark. That it's good. I think it's good. I like it. It just took me longer to like it.
And like you, I get thrown off by Justin Roiland. He's the voice of Corvo. His voice is very similar to the Rick voice, and Corvo is the smart one, and then you have, Rick is also the smart one. I wonder if it would have been a better idea to, it's like, hey, they had Alfred Molina. He voiced the character of the Duke. They would have gotten Molina to voice Corvo instead. Like, get a different voice to sort of break that connection.
Initially, I think they wanted that connection. The difference is Corvo's not in charge the way Rick is in charge. Corvo likes to think he's in charge. Matter of fact, it's clear none of them are in charge. Each one of them will, at any one moment in space and time, make a decision that affects all of them that's different than Rick. Rick is the center of all interactions in Rick and Morty. In Solar Opposites, it's an ensemble. They take turns being in charge, or at least in the show, episode, whatever's going on. It won't always be about Corvo. And like any good ensemble, sometimes you see him and sometimes you don't. And I think that they were looking for something more balanced, and I think that's what the Solar Opposites was, to be a more balanced version something that makes fun of human society. All the things that we love in the world, especially the trashy thing, trashy shit that Terry loves. Terry loves trashy. Trashy, rude, and vulgar. He loves it. And that is, ironically, what a lot of us do. A lot of us watch things, I know plenty of really respectable adults who watch The Housewives of Atlanta. Okay? I don't know why. When I ask them, they can't tell me why, but they watch it. There is something about trashy television and celebrities, all these other things that I look down on a regular basis that a whole bunch of people love. But then I'm Corvo. I have no use for humans. I really don't. And so Corvo is perfectly understandable. I want the world to make sense. I want to participate, but not too much. I want to be connected, but not too often. And I'm perfectly willing to go home as soon as I get there. So I get to your party, it's like, oh, I'm ready to go. I'm Corvo. So I relate to him. That's exactly the goal of the show, is to create 4 really different personalities that resonate with somebody who's watching it. And if one of them doesn't, one of the humans, how terrible they may be, will certainly resonate with you, because the humans are awful. Awful people. And then when they're not awful, they're good. The episode with the mouse, I had fear. I did. I know. And don't tell me you didn't.
Oh, I wanted that mouse to live so much.
Thank you. You felt for it. It was done so well. You could feel for the character. You could feel his frustration and his rage, and you're completely into it. You're into it. But you had to be able to get that far. That's the challenge. Can you get that far? And I think that their goal, the way they structured the show, was to make you pick a side. Whose side are you really on? Are you really with the aliens, or are you really with the human? Are you willing to be with them at their best and their worst? How much of that worst looks like you? I think Solar Opposites is really smart. It's smart science fiction. It's the science fiction we always say we want. It's just pretending to be dumb science fiction so you don't question anything. The same way Rick and Morty does. It pretends to be dumb science fiction that's really smart.
Rick and Morty, I think there's only, 1 or maybe 2 episodes left of this season.
The last one I watched was The Acid Pit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I love that. Not as much as the one before it, but I did love it.
It was a really good, and sort of like you were saying, it was very smart, and the way it dealt with time travel, and also it did show the difference between Corvo and Rick, because Corvo has disdain for humanity, views humanity as beneath him, but he's not cruel.
No.
And Rick, it can be cruel.
Not just cruel, Rick is petty. Rick is not just cruel, Rick is petty. Cruelty I could live with, but Rick doesn't just make a point. He makes the point savagely. He's willing to destroy entire worlds. That makes Rick petty and monstrous, which Marty is always telling him, and Rick is always pretending that he's not, which is why their dynamic is so powerful, because Rick is a monster, and without Morty, he knows what he might do.
And what's really amazing and so impressive, Rick is a hideous human being. and once a season, maybe twice a season, there's a little bit of humanity, a little bit of likability just creeps through, and it's like, okay, alright, he's not, even if he is completely irredeemable, he got to that place, he earned being a bastard.
He got there, yeah. He got there honestly. Rick became a monster through honest circumstances. He didn't wake up one day as a monster. Rick started off a person. And slowly and steadily, the more he knew, the more of him was eroded. Rick is the most intelligent being in his universe. And that makes Rick question everything. His biggest question is, if I'm the smartest man in the universe, what the hell happened? What happened that I became the smartest man in the universe? How did that happen? And why is that the case? And does that make me solipsistic and weird? Or is it true? And yet, even his alternative selves acknowledge that our Rick is the rickest Rick of them all. And they hate him for it. Remember that? They do hate him for that.
He's so much himself that he can't even deal with joining the rest of him. The only people in the entire multiverse as smart as him, and he can't stand them.
And he can't stand them, which is, again, a part of the psychology of Rick, is that Rick knows that even the smartest versions of him, that's how intolerable he is. Even he knows this. Why he can't stand them, they can't stand him. Because they learned to work together. Remember, they made the Council of Ricks. They came together. They worked together. Only C-137 Rick would just, no, I refuse. I will never work with you. I'll burn it all down before I work with you. And he did.
How have you been liking the current season?
I've enjoyed it. I have. I think when it first started, it had been a while, and I think I was Rick deprived. It took me a minute to remember Rick is not my friend.
He's the protagonist, but he's not the good guy.
That's right. He is interesting, and he is the protagonist, but he is not a good guy. And if you forget that, every new season starts off having to remind you. And I think that's what happened in the first couple episodes. I had to remember Rick is a monster. He's not the good guy. Morty's the good guy, and even he's questionable in his own way. He enables Rick. He limits him, but he also enables, as the last episode showed us, because Rick gave him something horrible. And Morty was completely okay with it because he didn't understand the dynamics of it.
You want to like Morty, but he's whiny, he's selfish, he's obsessive.
Compulsive, too.
Oh, yeah.
He's a lot like Rick, just not as smart.
He really is Rick, but just stupid.
Yes, he's Rick, but stupid. He has no singular redeeming feature that makes him worth maintaining, except for the fact that he has a little more humanity. In his way, he is more human. But have you noticed how Morty's been changing? Have you noticed it? So from last season to this season, I find Morty much more destructive, less tolerant. So, like, for example, when he shoots the two gangsters on the bridge.
They just irritated him.
But that's the point. Upon a time, Morty would have done anything to avoid killing them. Anything. It used to take an act of Congress to get Morty to lose it. But now, 5 minutes of, or let's say 10 minutes of whatever, however long they were communicating and sharing their feelings, and that annoyed. I was ready to shoot them. Just so we're all being real. It's not like Morty ate some great leap. His urge to shoot them was my urge to shoot them. It's like, really? Can't you work out your feelings somewhere else other than here? 5 minutes of that, and then let's move it. So I relate to me wanting to shoot them, but I was assuming Rick would shoot them. Rick was the one who exercised restraint. That's what I'm saying. They're trading places. Haven't you noticed that? Rick has been restrained, and Morty's been off the chain.
I remember the episode where Rick died and came back as like a yellow jacket.
Yes, when he was trying to clone his body. He kept traveling to parallel universes and cloning his body and discovering that he was in charge of so many fascist societies. It wasn't funny.
Yeah, and he basically became a murder hornet before we even knew what that was. I mean, Morty was just obsessed with, he thought if he followed a certain path, he would end up with
Jessica.
He caused the death of a lot of people, and he didn't care. Because he's realized just how fragile life is and how many people have gotten wiped out. I mean, just societies have gotten wiped out by Rick. And the other people that Morty admired, that episode where it was like the Avengers-like science fiction group.
Yes, I remember them.
Other life is has become disposable to Morty.
But that's what I'm saying. He's becoming more like Rick. I've watched when this show started. Rick was completely reprehensible, and Morty was still a very relatively moral individual. But as they've progressed, Rick has gained some weird morality, and Morty's become very much destructive and rickish. And I'm wondering if that's Rick's goal. Okay, so you remember the heist episode when they had HeistCon?
Oh, God, yeah.
So they had HeistCon, and I remember in that episode, their very nature of their interactions had begun to change. The longer I looked at Rick and Morty, Rick had become much more moral, even expressed regret when he told his people to steal HeistCon and they accidentally kill his rival. Accidentally. And Rick was like, oops, didn't expect that to happen. When was the last time you saw Rick express any regret about anything? He's wiped out whole species.
Well, hell, the whole point of that episode is Rick didn't want Morty to sort of go off on his own.
That's right, and so he made an extreme event that made Morty believe that he was making a choice that he wasn't actually making, that Rick had made for him. He wanted him to believe that he made that choice, but Rick made that choice for him by disillusioning him with the whole heist thing. Because he showed that the whole premise of the heist film is flawed. And if you pay any attention to it at all, you realize and no matter what happens, it always works out. Prove that. It took him quite a ways to do it. He did it so much that his goal was to make Morty loathe heist movie, even though he was working on one. And by the time he got ready to sell it, he became so disillusioned with it because he realized that there was nothing to it. Now that he had seen how deep it goes, it really doesn't go anywhere at all. Everywhere you go, there you are. And Morty came to that conclusion on his own because Rick wanted him to, so that he wouldn't leave and do something else. And that, in and of itself, is a form of humanity that I didn't expect Rick to show. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I see Rick becoming more moral. He's still just as controlling. He's still just as evil. But he's inclined to use a means that usually doesn't destroy entire civilizations. Though an entire civilization did get destroyed by one of those heist robots. Remember the planet where they stole the core of the planet?
Oh, yeah, pretending to be a pizza guy and to put the...
Steals the core of the planet so that all the species is killed. In his way, Rick is still just as destructive, but his goal was selfish and very human. Something I don't expect to see from Rick. So that's why I'm saying as I watch these two, they're taking on more of each other's tendencies. And I'm wondering if that's accidental or on purpose.
I gotta believe it's on purpose or there's thought put into it. I know Dan Harmon, the producer on the show, is very much into the hero's journey and wants to see movement from these characters, both overall and in individual episodes. You've seen some movement even with some of the other characters, although we haven't seen too much of... This season of Rick and Morty's been really Rick and Morty. You haven't seen the rest of the family too much. A little bit of Summer, but the parents... Yeah, I like Summer. I think she's a good character because when first introduced, you just assumed she was going to be the ditzy older sister, but she's a little deeper than that, and she's a little more clever and a little more grounded than the rest of the characters. Often she can be the voice of truth.
Summer is aware of her shit. She is not like Rick, is disillusioned. Not like Morty. She's not like Morty, who is highly moral, at least for a time. Summer is perfectly willing to be selfish when it suits her. Self-sufficient. She's perfectly willing to go off on her own and disappear for quite some time. More than once she's done that. Well, they forget her in a lot of places, but you know what? When you come back, who's still alive? Summer. Yeah, she's alive, and she's running things. So Summer is, in her way, she's very self-sufficient in that way. Or Morty, if you left Morty alone, he'd probably die. He just isn't smart enough, and he isn't equipped mentally to do too much for too long. Or at least he doesn't try to be. I have to think that Rick, the boy, can't be stupid. I mean, he cannot be completely stupid. He can't be. He survived. I know Rick has cloned him a few times. I know he has a card for a free Morty. Do you remember that?
I remember that.
So he has a card for a free Morty. I know that. And I think he's cloned the kid at least once.
Well, there are a lot of fan theories that the evil Morty, the one who became the president, that he's actually Rick's original Morty. And there's all sorts of ideas of like who is Rick's original Morty and all that. I think with Morty, it's not that he's bright, it's that he's been through this so many times that he just gets exasperated. So the one with the Avengers group where he's like, he's talking about the Middle East. He's like, how's it? He's like, you talk about it all the time. Is this? And when he was taking apart like the neutron bomb, he's like, you've done this? It's like, I just don't even want to talk about it. Just by repetition, he's gotten good at this.
Yeah, and I think that's what thing I think about more is it that he's dumb. because he and Rick have been to so many places and done so many things that even if Rick weren't there, he knows narratively. See, here's the thing I think about Rick and Morty that most probably don't. You know, Rick and Morty are aware of where they are, right? No, they are aware that they're part of an animated television series.
Oh, yeah, they've broken the fourth wall a few times, especially Rick.
That's right. They talk to us all the time. So Rick is aware of what he is, and Morty, by proximity, just by hanging out with Rick for all these years, is also aware. As a matter of fact, in the episode with that train, you remember that one that just recently? The train he brought, that Rick brought Morty, or that Morty brought Rick. The train's narrative story was a sub-story about the fact that Rick and Morty are aware that they're part of a story. So the show itself has pointed out that Rick knows what he is, that he knows where he is, and that he knows other realities exist for Rick. Imagine he's been as far as he could go being a cartoon, and he's aware of who he is and where he is, and he knows how to work the narrative flesh of any story, which is why ultimately Rick and Morty survive, because they are aware of what they are. And they've built into the story a means for them to survive even without them knowing it. So if Morty dies and Rick gets another Morty, the Morty that he gets will still remember everything that the previous Morty had, because he got him from a reality so close to the one he's in that there isn't an appreciable difference. That's the scary part of Rick and Morty, is that Rick knows what he is. Thus, every decision that he makes is one based on his personal convenience. Hence the reason they were talking about, would I destroy our home to prove a point? No, he'll destroy someone else's home to prove a point.
In my head, I play a supercut of us. All the magic we gave off, all the love we had and lost.
What I find really interesting is just the wholesale destruction, all the little plot lines. You know, we just mentioned the evil Morty character who showed up ever so briefly in that train episode.
Yes.
And people are so excited, and people are very excited about that character because it's like, oh, okay, this is plotline. But that character's only shown up twice during the entire run of the show. That's something that I sort of want to ask you about. You know, where do you think this is going to go? They only do 8-episode seasons, or 8 to 10 episode seasons. The production time is long. It's been well over 2 years between seasons. Apparently, they have some things in place to tighten that up. Like, they now have a longer commitment. They have a commitment for like 100 total episodes of Rick and Morty now from Adult Swim.
So they got lots of room to maneuver.
They have lots of room to maneuver. They don't have to like tie up any loose ends. Although, honestly, I don't think this is the sort of show that would do that anyway. I don't think it's the sort of thing that's like, well, we only have 5 episodes left, so let's answer all the questions. They're never going to answer all the questions on Rick and Morty. With that commitment, do you think they're going to start shortening the time in between seasons? Do you think they have an end game in place? It's like, okay, we know that there is going to be, when this is all said and done, God knows how long it's going to take, people are going to look, it's like, oh, I see what they were trying to do. Or do you think they're winging it?
I think they're doing a little both. Every episode of Rick and Morty almost always has a primary thread, A story, and the B story. Every so often, they'll generate a C story that they don't ever resolve. And then later, that C story becomes a B story. And later, that B story becomes an A story. I have a feeling what they've been doing, go back, if we watched every episode, we could probably start marking out A, B, and C threads, show you how they come back to them, and that they are weaving into this a long stream story that will eventually probably culminate with that anti-Morty, intelligent Morty. And I've often wondered if they would take that song called I Am My Own Grandpa. I wonder if Rick protects Morty, becomes Rick.
Oh, okay.
Here's the question. Why is it every Rick we meet almost always looks like every other Rick we meet? They're all about the same age. There only met a few Ricks that were young, and those young Ricks usually die. Notice that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we meet a young Rick, he usually dies. Why? Why are all the Ricks about the same age? And where are they coming from? Because they continue to exist, even in parallel realities. Slug Rick is still Rick. Where do all the Ricks come from? Why do they all have Mortys? Why is Morty so important? Is he really just a cloaking device for Rick? Or is he a safety feature? A way that at the end of all things, everything that could possibly go wrong to every Rick could possibly go wrong. He is a relative, isn't he? How close a relative? We've never actually had a Morty scanned and a Rick scanned and had their DNA checked. You ever notice that? All the technology in the universe that we always see. That's the one technology we never see. What does Morty's DNA and Rick's DNA look like? Are they more similar than we'd like to think?
It'd be pretty fascinating if the last episode you see Morty through the years and his hair going gray, and then the last scene is him looking in the mirror and there's Rick staring back at him. And it would be perfect with the way this show goes. Is like the few times when you think you've seen affection between the two of them. No, that wasn't affection. That was Rick trying to save his own ass.
And that's the feeling I've always had. The more I've watched it, the more I think about Rick's continued involvement with Morty. Haven't you noticed they started to sound alike? They nag each other. Listen to this season. Watch this season again. And when they start fighting, the thing I found fascinating was they really do sound more alike.
Well, and I like that Morty, he was very much cowed by Rick in the early seasons. At the end of that episode, the acid bath episode, he's going to the second acid bath, and he's just flipping Rick off as he's not even looking behind him. It's not even a big moment for him to stand up to Rick anymore. He's just like, for God's sakes, you're such an ass, Rick.
That's why I was saying, I think ultimately Rick is training Morty to be Rick. Rick wouldn't even need to be smart anymore, because he would have had a lifetime of being Morty. He would have just absorbed the experiences of being to Rick and experiencing Rick. The older he would get, the more experience he would get, the more capable he would become. Eventually, why wouldn't he? As this guy moves through space and time like I move through my house, he could always acquire another Morty.
Do you have a favorite episode, not just this season in general? Is there an episode of Rick and Morty that you go back to?
Pickle Rick.
That is so great. And, that's the episode. My folks were visiting me one day, and it's like, hey, you should watch this. And Pickle Rick's like the one that you could show people who haven't watched Rick and Morty yet. While there's certainly in-jokes and stuff, but it's the one where it's the easiest to grasp onto. It's like, okay, that guy is turned into a pickle for some reason, and then you have some weird die-hard Lethal Weapon 2 knockoff.
As he tries to achieve himself, become himself again. I love it. It's the one that shows me that Rick is a consciousness, not a body. He's pure mind, in fact. No matter where you put him, he's still Rick.
He's been killed so many times. There was I remember the one episode where they split off, not the evil, but the garbage part of Rick. Rick fought himself. They both killed each other once, but they were able to sort of download their consciousness into new bodies right before getting killed, because the body doesn't matter. Rick's lost his arms. He's gotten killed. He's that episode where he kept getting killed and his consciousness going back into a body that was always in like a fascist world.
That's right. He kept moving through timelines, and every time he moved to a new timeline, he'd open a clone tank for another alien species. So the first time it was a slug, and the next time it was
just the Nazis won the war.
Yeah, they were all fascists. It appears that only the fascist Ricks kept the clone tanks. That's ultimately what it's saying. That Rick himself evolved away from the clone tank. All of his fascist versions of himself kept it, as if to say that fascism, cloning kind of go together. That was one of those weird things, because he never found himself ever getting closer to being a primate, only moving further and further away.
That's really smart. I never even thought of that. Yeah.
Only the non-human versions of himself managed to keep this clone technology. It was only once he got all the way over to Insect Rick, dude, you're about as far away from being a primate as you're ever going to get. It's dark and brilliant and scary and subversive and everything I would want good science fiction to be.
That brings a good thing. We've already talked about there isn't a lot of great science fiction. Is there any sci-fi anywhere that you're, aside from aside from Rick and Morty, which is supposed to be parody of science fiction, is there any science fiction that you're really enjoying?
I had a list. So for my list, I had the sci-fi worth watching list of show. That was The Mandalorian. It's beautiful. It's elegant. It's simple. It does everything Star Wars was supposed to do, and I care about it. Care about the characters. Not all knowing, they're not all powerful. Matter of fact, they're so flawed and fleshy. It just feels good to watch them. You know, when The Mandalorian fails, I'm like, yes, fails. That means he has to get up and dust himself off and go out and do it again. Never perfect. It's good. Really good. But remember when he was climbing on the side of that Jawa tank? They knocked him off? You're like, well, the Jawas, how dangerous can they be? Obviously more dangerous than you thought. And here you go. They were more dangerous than I thought.
I'm really excited about Mandalorian. They just announced for Season 2 that Timothy Olyphant.
I like him.
I like him a lot, and he's an actor who's very good at Westerns, because he was starred in Deadwood, which was a Western, and then he also starred in one of my favorite shows of all time. He was the lead in Justified, which was a modern Western.
That's why he's good at it. That's his thing, and that's why he's the perfect character for The Mandalorian.
Yeah, he's going to be fantastic for that, so I'm really looking forward to that. What Mandalorian does very, very well, it knows that with good science fiction, you can set it anywhere. It was very similar to Firefly. I liked Firefly. I love Serenity. I love the movie because I think it had first season jitters, the actual season of Firefly. But it was a Western. It was trying to do a Western, but hey, we can also have some fun, neat science fiction twists. And Mandalorian's doing the same thing. When you do science fiction just for the sake of, like, let's have cool spaceships and neat-looking monsters, and I think the less engaging Star Wars stuff, that's it. It was like, okay, we're just going to have cool lightsaber battles and stuff. It's like, no, there's things that make this work, and it's not the special effects are great, but they need to be telling a story over that.
They need to be connected to something. They need to be connecting you as the watcher to what's going on. Star Wars, when it does that well, but it hasn't done that in a long time. I love Rogue One. It's a movie where there are stakes. And I think that's where Star Wars and I fell out, because it stopped having any stake. It never felt like there was anything at risk. The story felt very clean. It's a story for children. And I feel like it has not evolved beyond that. Black and white are very evenly distributed, and they're very easy to follow. And I feel like what I like about The Mandalorian is it's not quite black, it's not quite white, it's various shades of gray. And yet there is a certain nobility to the character that makes you cheer for him, it makes you root, and he maintains a degree of dignity, quiet dignity. Obi-Wan Kenobi had it. Young Kenobi had it. Had that dignity, that it's just a way to do things. You know, we don't deviate from the way to do. And literally, The Mandalorian has the way. They have figured out what makes The Mandalorian work is there should be things a man will do and the things a man won't, and that he knows the difference. And when you stop knowing the difference, you end up as Darth Vader. That's the reason I like the man. Everybody knows where they are. Everybody's drawn their line in the sand. And each character he interacts with has a different line. And his goal half the time is to convince them maybe they could flex a little bit, just like they ask him to flex. Generally, there's a little give in there. So everybody's giving. And I feel like that's the thing that makes it work, is that everybody's trying to maintain their sense of right, their sense of rightness in the universe. Yet they recognize that if they're ever going to have any allies, you got to give a little to get a little. That's its strength, is that it is flexible. It doesn't just say, I am Jedi, I am Sith, and there is never anything in. And I think that's what makes it, that's why I enjoy it. My other ones include Years and Years. I don't know if you saw that. It was a BBC HBO collaboration. It's a near future, and when I say near future, 8 or 10 years ahead of us. And it talks about this family evolving with technologies. And so think of it like universe is Black Mirror, like where technology looks a lot like ours. They've just taken it a little bit further. And they take a family of people, all their issues, and we show them moving through time slowly and the challenges of a world where technology, not just good or bad, it's being used by both sides. You see very horrible things being done in the name of good. People would say to you, I am doing a good thing, while they're using a very bad technology. You know, there are no good guys, there are no bad guys, there are just guys. Everybody's trying to figure out, where do I draw my line? Some of the people draw lines and you're like, what? What are you doing? But you could understand their perspective given the nature of the story and how it had been. So everybody does things that you expect and don't expect. And I think that's what I liked about it. The characters felt like people I could know. I feel like Years and Years gave us horrible circumstances, showed that you had a chance. If you were in the right place at the right time, you could make a different choice. And I think it's probably one of the best things I've seen on television in a long time. Doesn't use technology as a crutch to tell a story. Technology that you see is integral to the story. It feels real, it is real, it acts real. So if you haven't seen it, find it, watch it.
I'm just looking at the page for it. Emmett Thompson.
I'm telling you, it's an amazing piece of work. And when you look for it online, look for articles written about it online, they're very, very, they love it. They bought it. But I found that there just didn't seem to be a whole lot of conversation about it. Anybody who was not like me, I didn't see anybody talking. It hits close to home. That's what it is. I think it's really a freak me out. It's a freak me out. It causes people to freak out, and I think that disturbs people. For the most part, people are just going, please, God, don't let it happen. If this just doesn't happen, if Donald Trump leaves office and he doesn't nuke anybody, we'll be happy. Because you could see him nuking somebody.
There's been rumors that when he had just become president, they were talking about some very complicated international issues, and he's like, well, why don't we just bomb them? I was like literally asking, why don't we just use nuclear weapons on the people?
Yeah, don't you? Yeah, I remember that because I ended up making a banner on my page, and it says, if you believe nuking people is the right answer, you're getting the wrong question. Nukes aren't an answer to any question, ever. Just no question that says, hey, nukes are a good choice, unless it's Godzilla.
It'll just make Godzilla stronger.
Right, it'll only make him stronger and matter, so even then it's not a good choice. It's just something you don't do. But for Donald Trump, that was a question that he thought should be answered with a nuke. So when I saw this series and they were actually showing him nuking somebody, I was like, wow. He just decided we're just going to go put our politics right here on the screen for you to see. So if you haven't seen it, my brother, I want you to watch it. You will find it is a treat. It's as good as anything that you've watched anywhere else. Did you see Watchmen?
No, I just got HBO, so I'm going to be checking that out shortly. I'm watching The Jinx, which is very different than Watchmen.
I don't know if we can be friends anymore. You haven't seen Watchmen?
Well, I haven't had HBO.
This is worthy. Watchmen is worthy. It is rich. It is, especially like me, I'm a comic person, so I read the comics. I saw the movies.
And I know this is a sequel to the comics and not the movie.
Correct. Well, it could be a sequel to the movie as long as you don't look really, really hard. The movie is pretty much the comic, just without as much of the background story because it's a movie, so you can't tell some of that stuff. Imagine reading the comic and taking out all the pages where they tell you what's going on, just telling the story of the character. Because the comic offers you a bunch of pages where there's new information that you don't get in the movie. So it's basically, without all the background, it's the comic without all the background stuff. So you just have to follow the characters. But the series is much slower, much better paced, and you're much more able to interact with the characters. And they go backward in time, so you get to learn who the Minutemen were, that the Watchmen were based off of, see how those stories came about. see how those characters came about. It is my favorite.
Do you think there's going to be a new season?
No, there will not be, because the person who made it magnificent, he said, I came, I told the story I saw, I wanted to tell, and I left. Vini vidi vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. Unless they can find someone equally talented and can figure out where they want to go from there, I don't see this ever having anything else, and I'm perfectly okay with that. It's so rare that a series ends and I'm like, yep, that was perfect. Don't change a thing. Don't make any more. But this is one of those that if they never made another, they did right. Do you have Netflix?
I do.
I want you to go watch Scissor 7.
Oh, I heard about this. Tell me more about Scissor 7.
Scissor 7 is a Chinese animation. It is about a war where magic, kung fu, and technology are all battling for control of the world. But it's been a slow battle, because technology is awesome, but not everybody can use it. And kung fu is awesome, but not everybody can do it. And just being a person alive in this world, challenge in and of itself. The story is about a guy who's a hairdresser. He's a mysterious assassin. Well, not so mysterious and not so assassin. I think in the first season, he doesn't kill anybody. He tries, just doesn't. But it's not for lack of effort. It's for an intense moral character. But it's so strange, because I would tell you the first 3 or 4 episodes, you have no idea what's going on. I do none. There's no way you'll know what's happening. And I think even after the 5th or 6th episode, when you start getting some idea of what's happening, you're still going, I can't believe I'm still watching this. But I'm compelled, because I think by the 5th or 6th episode, I could not stop watching it. I had to know how it was going to end. And it was bizarre and weird, and yet it reminded me of Japanese anime, yet it didn't. And I think that's what was the most compelling part of it. It felt like a Japanese animation, but it wasn't. I enjoyed it immensely, and the more I watch it, the more I love it. And I have to say, by the end of the first season, though I was confused, I was invested in the characters, I was invested in the story, and the main character is every bit goofy as he appears from day one. He stays the same goofy character, even as he evolves. I'm now halfway done with the second season. I think the second season's funny. We get some more backstories, and backstories we appreciate. It's one of those stories where you have to go back to go forward. So every time we go back, we can now go forward, see a change in the story, and now we have a more rich understanding of each character and their motivations and why they do it. And I think it's just brilliantly clever and unexpected, because when I turned it on the first few episodes, it's like, oh, I'm tired. I can't go to sleep. I'm just going to turn this on, whatever. So I turned it on. I had no expectation. I had read nothing on it. Just started watching it, and it made me laugh. That's rare. So the more it made me laugh, the more I wanted to keep watching it. And the more I watched it, the more fun it got. And eventually I got my wife to watch it. She's over here sitting here. But she watched it. She enjoyed it. She is as discriminating in her way as I am in mine. She's come to enjoy it. Go ahead. Tell us, honey. How much do you enjoy it?
Oh, it's great. It's compelling enough for me to pick it out.
So it's worthy. So those are my best of show for this last couple of years. And, of course, there's HBO, Love and Rockets, My Hero Academia, Blood Blockade, Battlefront, Attack on Titan. These are things that are, these were the sci-fi food chain for me. So there's good science fiction out there. But so at some point we might want to come back to this list and talk about just how good things can be. And because we've talked about some of them. We talked about The Boys. I don't think we talked about Steven Universe or Star vs. But I love them.
I enjoy Star vs. the Forces of Evil a lot. So clever, so smart. And also, I just love the little song that they play at the end of that.
I think Earth is a pretty great place. That's saying something, cause I've been through outer space. I think it suits me, it's just my style. I think I'm gonna stay a little while. I think that strangers are just friends you haven't met. I'm blasting monsters and I never break a sweat. I'm really thinking I could call this place home.
Disney kids, the kid shows from Disney, they're really good. They give the right people control of that world.
Yeah, and it's brilliant and clever and tongue-in-cheek and temporary, and yet be willing to make fun of itself and still be a very serious story. Jarf versus the Forces of Evil is a very serious themed story. Lots of logical problems and social issues, and love it.
Frog.
Yes, Buff Frog and his children. I love that. And Steven Universe, also, in my mind, one of the finer things that came out of this era. There aren't many. Fight me. I will absolutely fight over. So at some point, I will send you my list. You can decide just how many of these things you want to talk about. Cause I have only one show in my category, Run Screaming, and that's that show, Lock and Key. Don't do it. Did you do it?
No, I've had enough people warn me away from it.
It's crap. Now, maybe the books are I hear the books are brilliant. Everybody says, read the books. But personally, I will never, ever approach this series again because it left me so angry. I was beside myself. I was like, you know what? I could have done any number of things in 12 hours or however many hours this show ran. These people will never, whoever produced this will never get my money, my time.
You only have so many hours in the day, right?
And I did not enjoy that. And see, I've watched so many things. When I send you this list, you'll be like, are you watching TV all the time? I'm like, no. I only watch TV at night when I don't sleep. During the day, my TV never comes on. I only watch TV at night when I can't go to. Plus, I have a pathological disgust of commercials, so never going to buy any of those products.
There's a rhythm and rush these days, where the lines don't move and the colors don't fade. Leaves you empty with nothing but dreams, in a world gone shallow, in a world gone mean.
Now, I have a question for you. Did you see Picard?
I've just started watching it. I'm liking it. Patrick Stewart's so damn good.
Did you see any of Discovery?
No, with the quarantine. I just got HBO and I just got CBS All Access. I'm starting with Picard, and then I'll go to Discovery.
So I'm going to tell you now so you don't get upset. First season of Discovery will make you angry. I'm letting you know this now so that you don't quit. As the second season, make you happy. But you've got to get through the first season, and you'll spend most of the first season throwing things. So just keep a bunch of marshmallows with you. So when you throw something at your television, it bounces off. You're going to do that a lot. First season of Discovery is marshmallow throwing frustration. The second season is so much better. It redeems itself every way, and that's saying a lot. Then we get to see Captain Pike. Captain Pike is all that and a bag of chips. Matter of fact, he got a new show. You know that, right?
Yeah. I know they're working real hard to expand that universe. They're doing a real smart way.
He was good. He was believable. And after the first season, where there was no captain to speak of, he was what the doctor ordered and helped the show get right. Now he's back on his own enterprise and went well. So I absolutely say that. First season Discovery, kill me. Second season Discovery, I'm renewed. It's worthy. And I'm an absolute Picard fan. I know there were lots of people complaining about it.
Patrick Stewart's brilliant. I saw him on Broadway years ago. Played Prospero in The Tempest, which is my favorite Shakespeare play. And he was a perfect casting for it. Such a good actor. He did such a great job with that role. And bringing him back after all these years and telling such a different story, I think that's a great idea. And I know Star Trek has never been like, it's not an action show, but it is a science fiction show that with some action. It's good that they got a younger cast around him to sort of handle that heavy lifting, because you're not there to see Patrick Stewart like throw down.
And thankfully he doesn't have to. Have you seen 7 of 9 yet?
No, I haven't got to that yet, although I did see, I know she's in it. I have seen her in the clips, so. And I like Jerry Ryan.
Awesome. Jerry Ryan came back and I'm hoping that she'll get a chance to reappear at some point. Not in her own show, appearing again on Picard, because that was a character that she got the revival she deserved. She was one of those characters that I always felt was underutilized in Voyager. They used her, but not really. But in this series, she was amazing.
Well, the whole thing is she was very important to the Star Trek TV franchises because she was a completely new sort of character where she was the science fiction hottie. They put her in the really tight outfit. She's a beautiful woman with a nice figure, and they had never gone for the sex symbol before in Star Trek. Not really. I mean, they obviously had attractive women on the show, but it was the first time where they really seemed to lean into it. It could be interesting because she's a good actress, and now taking the hottie, but now she's older and has grown past that. I think there's a lot you can do with it, especially if you have an actress who has the chops to bring it across.
Well, she brings it, and she brings it all the way this time. Like I said, they make the character everything it should have ever been. So you can easily forgive all of the previous 7 of 9 things. Because you don't have to forget them, but a lot of people complained about them. When she reprises the role, she reprises it in a way that she's so much richer now as a character. And she brings a range of expression that you waited for but never really got a chance to experience in Voyager. So I was thrilled.
Well, Thaddeus, you giving me a lot of homework. I'm looking forward to checking out everything.
Like I said, I'll send you my list.
I look forward to the list. I'll share it on our Facebook page. Before I let you go, we need you to plug your pluggables. Where can people read more of The Answer Man, Thaddeus Howze?
Okay, well, I've been away from Quora for a while, giving myself a break, but I'm working on an article on AI right now that I will be putting up there, AI in the Marvel Universe. That'll be my first Answer Man article in a while. And then I'm working with a friend of mine on Facebook, and we are writing something called Desperately Seeking Cerberus. And it is an improvisational jazz story because we don't talk about the story to each other. The clues we get for the story are in the story. So he writes a chapter, I write a chapter. I take clues from what he wrote, from what I write. We don't ever talk about it. Just let it happen. So if you go to Facebook and you type in @ Desperately Seeking Cerberus, find our page. I made a page there. Find the first 10 chapters there already. To rock and roll, queue them up, and read them. And yeah, there's some errors, and we don't have an editor. I imagine if we finish this and we like it as much as we're continuing to like it, probably try and turn it into a series or something. It's written in the current pandemic era, which is a rare thing. So we're having social distancing and sheltering in place and challenges of the disruption that this has made in the physical world and in the spiritual one. Our story talks about Cerberus leaving gates of Hades, traveling out into the world, and Hades is the only person who can go get him. Now it's up to Hades to go out into the world, though he does not want to, retrieve his dog. And while he's trying to retrieve his dog, someone tries to kill him and release the Titans from Tartarus. So there's more going on here than just Cerberus leaving home, and everybody is having to manage to make do with what they've got where they are, and it's the most fun I've had writing anything in a while. So check out Desperately Seeking Cerberus on Facebook.
I will recommend everyone do that.
You should get it while it's still free, because our mission is to make you pay for it at some point. Right now, we're still learning, still experimenting, and I wanted to do something different. This was something different with a writer I respect, H. Wolfgang Porter. Clever and smart, and is forcing me to be better than I've had to be in a while as a writer. So that's good, too. I do most of my writing and politics writing on Facebook. I write about the coronavirus. Like you are trying to learn about the pandemic, have no idea where to start, but you don't want to hear about 5G and COVID-19 radiation interactions. You don't have to worry. I'm the Answer Man, which went out and found the science of the and put it all in one place. It's on Facebook and Pandemic Earth. So I've been busy. Since the coronavirus has been out, I've been writing on it and talking about it and getting information about it. And if you want to know something about it, I probably can tell you something that you didn't know, or you can learn something about the Pandemic Earth, because I've got the smartest people on the planet right there. Still on Quora, still on Facebook, still on Pandemic Earth, doing Desperately Seeking Cerberus, writing back again as the Answer Man. And I may even try and put out another book. Who knows? writing is continuing to evolve. I'm getting better at it. I'm more comfortable with it. I'm actually able to market myself now a couple of times a month. Gasp. So I appreciate you always taking the time to bring me on your show, promote Cosmic Geppetto, and I promote your podcast wherever I can. And we still need to talk to Gene. I think that the things that you guys are doing and Krypton Radio are in sync. And so I still write for Krypton Radio. And I still do my podcast. So I'm everywhere, brother. I'm everywhere. I have a climate podcast, write for Krypton Radio. I work on Quora. I write comic stuff. I write Pandemic Earth. I'm doing fantasy fiction everywhere. All you have to do is name a thing. I'm probably going to show up.
Well, we definitely want to keep cross-pollinating with Krypton Radio. Thaddeus, this is our 200th episode.
Awesome.
I had to have you on for this episode. You always bring the goods, and you always get a great reaction from our listeners. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much.
I'm honored. I feel really pleased that you brought me. Thank you so much.
Jarf has a heart out because it's 7:30. He's got to go to bed. Not because he has an early morning. He and I are just old guys now, and we eat dinner at 4 o'clock and go to bed at 7, and wonder when Matlock's going to be on TV.
It's the dream. I also get up at 4. I should add.
You get up at 4?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
I usually get up at 5, so I'm usually in bed early, but the time difference really works in my favor.
Oh, lucky.
It's only 4:30.
It is the 200th episode of the Cosmic Geppetto podcast. There was no other option. We had to reunite Honey Badger and her amazing friends. Honey Badger, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I am doing good. Really excited. I just remember there was this old thing with Martin and Lewis where they hadn't spoken in like 12 years. And then during the Jerry Lewis telethon, old Blue Eyes himself, Frank Sinatra, brought Martin on and they reunited first time. I feel like I'm the Frank Sinatra right now because also here we have Mike Watson. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Very good. I'm glad that we've finally been able to broker peace between you and Honey Badger.
There's no bad blood or between us.
Not one bit.
I have a lot of other things going on with my life right now, and I'm taking a sabbatical.
That is it. Don't you put any disdain in the air on our friendship.
No, I'm not bringing up anything that you said when she wasn't around. I'm not doing that at all.
Katie, 90% of my conversations are recorded, so none of that's true.
Is it even possible to talk to people without it being recorded? That's not possible, right?
I don't think so. Not anymore.
Jesus Christ, we're all friends with Jarf, so we're all on a couple of NSA lists. Trust me, that other 10%, you sneeze, there's a reason Alexa's saying bless you. So rounding us out, we have Inspector Flora himself, Jarf. Jarf, how are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited we are all together for the 200th episode. This is huge.
This is huge.
It's pretty exciting. I'm so glad that you wanted us to be a part of this.
Yeah, me too.
I feel like it's a huge honor, so thank you.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal. I couldn't think of anyone else to do it. It was funny. I love this group, but there's things that don't seem big enough for this group. And it's like, the movie's coming out. It's not big enough for Honey Badger and her amazing friends. We need like an Avengers movie, or that's about it. That's all I can think of is like the only thing big enough for this group is Avengers movies. And the 200th episode. It's hard because we all have vastly different schedules. Katie, you're dealing with all your craziness. Jarf is trying to make the world a better place. Mike, you have like 3 YouTube channels going on at the same time.
Is it only 3? I feel like it's like 14.
It's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I'm actually going to get rid of 1, cut it down to the 2. I'm realizing Chat and Draw has become the more popular show between my Dear Creative one, and I can do exactly what I do on Dear Creative with Chat and Draw, and the other aspect I do with Katie and I show on The Good, Bad, and Nerdy. So I'm going to be falling back a little bit with that.
But it's just, and then also keeping the hotshot universe rolling. So, it's hard to get the four of us together. And what's funny is we got everyone together. It's like, okay, 200th episode. And then this morning I was asked, it's like, oh, what are we going to talk about? It's like, I have no freaking idea. I'm just so happy we're together.
Right. I like it.
This group of four is what Cosmic Geppetto for me is all about. It's four people with different backgrounds and different interests. And we all sort of came together organically because, Jarf, you recount how you brought Mike Watson into our world.
All right, the secret origin story, right? So this was in the relatively early days of Cosmic Geppetto, and I went to Wizard World Philly, and Michael had his booth for Hotshot, and I saw one of the big promotion posters of Hotshot. I'm like, who is this awesome hero? And so I just went over and I picked up some of the comics, and I don't go to a ton of cons, so I don't always make the connection that the person standing there is necessarily the artist. Like, it could just be someone repping the company or whatnot. And so I was like, hey, I'm affiliated with this podcast. Like, can you tell me a little bit about this book? And, it'd be great if I could interview you. And fast forward here to 2020, and along the course of the way, Michael and Honey Badger made this great connection. And I'm actually wearing a Harry Potter t-shirt in honor of the fandom you first connected on. Because if there's like a shipper of friends, then I am a Honey Badger and Michael friendship shipper.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I'm over here blushing, and that's hard.
But I totally agree. That's what's awesome about Cosmic Geppetto. Just getting to talk to people across the country from different walks of life and hearing how they respond to the same things that I geek out over, and they see different things in them. And I mean, that's what this is all about. And it's especially valuable now in this time when we're physically distancing and we can't just go to the bar and talk about the last Avengers movie. We can do it here in this space.
Hold up. Have you been calling it physical distancing? I can't even talk. That's what you've been calling this the whole time?
Sometimes I call it social. Sometimes I call it physical. My wife works from home as well, so I hear a lot of her work calls. And so I've heard it from her colleagues a lot. She's a consultant who works for nonprofits. I'm trying to use that because it's like the spoonful of sugar helps the medicine goes down. It undercuts the socially draining aspect of it and makes people think the point is just to stay physically apart.
Today is the first day I heard the terminology because at my day gig, we're doing talking. That's what they called it today. And then I think it's really funny that I'm on the podcast now and you said it. So I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think the people who first came up with the term social distancing very shortly after were okay, so maybe we didn't mean social distancing. Maybe physical distancing makes, more sense because they don't want people not interacting. They just don't want people interacting in person.
When you hear social distancing, you think, oh, I'm not supposed to socialize. And I think that the idea is society is supposed to distance themselves from one another, like a public health term. But yeah. Episode 200, educational.
Let's talk semantics.
Looking at this group and having Honey Badger and Amazing Friends together, I realized we need arch nemesis. What's the Avengers without the Masters of Evil? The X-Men without the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants? By the way, how obvious is it? Do you really name your group Evil? We do need to have those arch foes. I'm thinking the Murder Hornets and the Evil Friends, maybe? Maybe brainstorm this. Pretty sure we could convince Amy. She's still a little mad at you, Michael, for throwing her aside for Katie. She could be the Murder Hornet, and we'll see. Either that or Alice Lauren. She's always out there. Of course, she already has the Geppettos. Right. Murder Hornet and the Geppettos. There we go.
Yeah, podcast socialite Alice Lauren. That sounds like a secret identity if I have ever heard one.
Yeah, that's a fake name for sure.
That's not even a real job. Of course, I'm a software tester. That doesn't sound like a real job either. So what am I talking about? All right. Looking into the future, theoretically, if the world ever comes back to some amount of normalcy, what geeky thing are you guys most looking forward to?
Comic book conventions. Jesus, I need to be injected. I am fiending for a Comic-Con or an event of geekdom caliber level. I need to be surrounded by geeks and act a fool and see costumes and pitch books and see other books and have full-blown geek argument conversations. I'm sorry if I jumped the line. It was just sitting in my body and I had to let it out.
What's the last show you did?
GalaxyCon was the last one I did. No. I did, what is it? It was GalaxyCon VA. Like, it was out in, I can't remember.
Richmond, right?
Richmond, yeah. But no, that's a lie. Then I did Wizard World Cleveland. That was the last one I did.
My folks live in Richmond, Virginia. I was trying to work out if we could get down there, but by that point, things were getting weird anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Was not quite able to make the trip. Or I could have just sent you to my folks' place. It's like, here's an address, free stay.
Well, it's duly noted for the next time. I think for sure we've got to coordinate and figure out a show that's close to all of us so we can meet in person. And I would love to just hang out and chill out with you guys too. But I'd also love to do a live cast with you guys in person.
We tried it last year because for a while it looks like you were going to go to Baltimore Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And we were going to surprise you. And then we were just having a conversation and you were saying you were going to be somewhere else that weekend.
Sean Mack, the operations director for Short Fuse Media, gives me crap for that all the time because I got to go to the Wizard World Columbus show. And I went to that show because I needed to represent the group. We were getting set up. We had a lot of events. And I was thinking, excuse me for thinking with my big, let's sell as many comics as we can head. And I was like, well, if 4 of them are going to be out in Baltimore, me and a couple people can go to Columbus and we can hold it down at 2 big shows. And then I can deal with Sean tearing me up for it every time he can. But then you guys told me that you were all going to be out there and I was so pissed.
We were going to run a marathon and then surprise you. So we were going to be like, we were going to stink.
Oh, my goodness.
Gross and disgusting and tired and hungry, but we were going to come see you.
And as I love my Short Fuse family, I would have really, really enjoyed seeing you. Like, I would have acted a damn fool if I would have saw y'all. Like, that would have been crazy.
We had this whole surprise ready for you.
We were looking to make T-shirts. It was going to be epic.
Oh, so sad.
We didn't do any of that shit. Without you, it all fell apart.
I did buy a Hot Shot t-shirt so I could wear it and surprise you.
Oh, that's why you're my bestie. That is why.
I have a Hot Shot t-shirt too. I'm just thinking of what maniacs we would have looked like showing up in our head. Like, we're here. We're in your t-shirt.
Limping, sweating.
Right.
Yeah, we would have run like in the t-shirt.
Jarf, I would have loved it too if you would have wore your Hot Shot shirt. That would have been incredible. But you had an advantage. You met me first, and you knew what it was.
That's true. I had an advantage. And I'm sure you probably would have loved it, but it's funny to picture it going the other way where you're like, oh, wow, you're here. Wow, you wore the shirt in the run. Okay. Can we maybe just keep this to online because you're really just close to me right now?
It's terrible.
Brad, host of the show, you were asking me what geeky thing am I looking forward to?
This is what happens when you don't have a set agenda topic.
I knew it was going to be chaos. I'll fix it in editing. What geeky thing are you looking forward to, Jarf?
Against all odds, I'm looking forward to The Batman. When I first heard that a new Batman movie was coming out, I thought, well, that's fine. It's not really for me. And I felt, does this movie really need to happen? But the more that I've heard about it and the more casting that I've heard and the comics that they are possibly looking to for inspiration, the more excited I've got. So specifically, Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman. Yes, please.
Oh, yeah.
Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon. a good Gordon can really make or break your Batman.
Yes, it can.
Someone that can bring some gravitas, absolutely. So excited about all of that, and also listening to friends of the show's Bat Minute. They're covering Batman Forever right now, and and I was a guest on there, and so it's got me like looking back at that movie and just remembering this pre-Christopher Nolan and pre-Batman versus Superman era where there was more of the colorful rogues gallery of villains. And so I'm excited to, not that I don't enjoy the Christopher Nolan Batman, but I'd like to see different takes that people have on it. And I feel like there is more rich material that we can get out of that.
I'm with that.
I'm agree. I know the Pattinson casting raised eyebrows, but I think he gets an undue, and I've said this before in the show, I think he gets too much heat for doing the Twilight movies. He was an actor who was hired to play a role in a very successful movie franchise, as if he was going to say no to that.
Right.
And I think he's proven to be a talented actor. I give him a lot of credit. He's sort of spent the last decade developing his craft, and now he's digging his teeth into what could be an interesting role. So I'm with you. I'm with you. Honey Badger, now do you want to go next or you want to back clean up?
I can go next. So I don't know, since you guys are dudes, if you know what Vera Bradley is.
It's like bags, right?
Yes. They're usually very colorful. I don't know. I'm really into them.
I know it because we do charity auctions and people donate them. And they're like, oh, it's a Vera Bradley. And I'm like, good.
It's a very southern thing. And I did spend 4 years in the South at college. So I kind of picked that up. But anyway, Vera Bradley is doing a collab with Harry Potter. And I cannot wait.
Okay.
So what are they doing?
So they're going to have like house related bags and other stuff.
Oh, nice. So you can get something in the house you identify with?
Yeah, exactly. And then they're also doing, I think they're coming out with a bunch of stuff next month. And then in the fall, they're coming out with like blankets and robes and stuff like that. So I'm like really excited about that.
That sounds fun. I don't remember if we've ever talked about this, about what house are you in, Honey Badger?
Oh, we talked about it.
Yeah, we talked about it.
Slytherin.
As the most obvious answer in the world.
I'm proud of it.
Yes, Slytherin. The thing I'm really looking forward to, The Falcon and Winter Soldier on Disney+. We're still probably about a year out, and God only knows, maybe even longer than that. I know filming has shut down for the time being, but they showed just the briefest clips of it in a Disney+ ad. It shows Anthony Mackie as Falcon throwing Captain America's shield, and it looks great. Mackie is really athletic, and he's a really talented actor, so I'm looking forward to that. And it's neat because I think it could be the best of what these Disney Marvel series can be, where they're going to have a little bit more time to tell some stories and tie up some loose ends. You're going to have Daniel Bruhl as Zemo, and Emily Van Camp, who was Sharon Carter, and her story got dropped with Civil War, and I think there could be interesting things followed up with her. And also, it's going to have the John Walker U.S. agent or super patriot character, and looks like he's going to be set up as the new Captain America by the government, played by Wyatt Russell, who I like that actor. It's Kurt Russell's son, who's been doing some interesting work over the last few years on what was it? And I watched the show and I liked it. Lodge 49. He was doing some cool work on Lodge 49. So I think they have good casting. I think that has the best chance to be sort of a crowd-pleasing series of the Marvel shows. So I'm really looking forward to that.
by the crickets we're getting right now, I can tell that everyone else is thrilled with the idea of the Falcon Winter Soldier show.
That was actually my answer for name something everyone expects you to be into that you aren't.
Oh, wow. All right.
It really was, or you just figured that would be a good burn?
No, that was it.
I love it.
Why are you not into that?
I think Winter Soldier is a little shit.
Oh, you poor baby. You were tortured by Russians for years and brainwashed. Cry me a river.
Exactly. Grow a pair.
Oh, wow.
So you said Slytherin. Are you sure about that?
I like Falcon. I just don't like Winter Soldier. I don't like the character. I never have. I never will.
Okay. Well, that leads us right into the next question. Yeah, what is something geeky that everyone thinks you're going to be really into that you just aren't? And Katie, people expect her to love the Winter Soldier Falcon and be excited about that. She's not having it. For me, I haven't seen The Rise of Skywalker yet.
What?
Don't do it.
I have Disney Plus. There's literally nothing keeping me from watching it. I promise I will, but I'm not. I've never been a huge Star Wars fan.
Okay.
I've certainly enjoyed it and appreciated it.
This movie won't turn you into a fan.
This is not what's going to put me over the edge. I will watch it. It's just everyone who knows me is like, "Oh, you must be excited. You must have tickets for opening night." And it's like, nah. And then the movie came out, and then it hit the second run theaters, and I was like, and now it's on Disney Plus, and it's like, and I don't have the passion of someone who hates the series. It's just meh.
So I can do my what someone expects you to be into, but just I have to say, if we get to the segment of the geeky thing that has happened that has most disappointed me, I have to pass because my thing is a spoiler for The Rise of Skywalker. It's not the movie as a whole, so I still encourage you to watch it when you have a chance. It's a particular thing, but it's a huge spoiler. So I have, and I don't want to spoil it for you. So I have to pass on that. But the thing
what we'll do is when that time comes, I'll go off for 30 seconds and you can call it out and then I'll come back on.
Cone of Silence. Great idea.
That's awesome.
Okay, good, because I'm like super curious. I'm like, I saw the movie, tell me.
So the thing that everyone expects me to be into, and this isn't theoretical, they have actually said to my face, I can't believe you're not into this. Oh my gosh, I thought you were into geeky stuff. Blah. But it's Game of Thrones. I have never been able to get into Game of Thrones. I like my fantasy more on the fairy tale, romantic and heroic end, and I don't like the dark and all of the Machiavellian double crossing. I don't like that side of things. So it's just not my cup of tea, which is fine because there's so many awesome things to geek out over. This is a great time to be into geeky things because there's definitely something that's for you. I was fine for years until I started working at the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. Now I'm in this weird world where I'm surrounded by people who, for the most part, don't share my geeky interests, but they're crazy for Game of Thrones. So every time it comes up, everyone pops out of back when we were in the office, they pop out of their office and they talk about Game of Thrones all morning. And I just at some point would just close my office door. And now that we only communicate on Zoom, I have run out of I'm muting you memes to send them when they're talking about Game of Thrones.
Are they still talking about it?
So there was some kind of quarantine Game of Thrones challenge that came up and it kicked the hornet's nest. And this thread is supposed to be for our work projects, but then and no one will ever comment if someone asks, hey, where can I find that video that we're supposed to use for this promotion? But ask who's your favorite character on Game of Thrones, and just there'll be alerts on my laptop all day. Ba-ding, ba-ding, someone coming. I'm like, I never watch it. I don't care. Leave me alone.
Mike and Katie, they have their affection for Game of Thrones. I've watched a couple episodes. My parents were, let me rephrase. My mom was a huge fan, and Dad would fall asleep next to her while watching it.
My favorite segment on the Cosmic Geppetto podcast is what Brad's mom is a fan of. So we know Thor is at the top of the list.
Yeah, my mom loves science fiction. She devoured the Picard show because Picard's her favorite captain. Yeah, she also loved Farscape, X-Files, Battlestar Galactica.
You're talking Battlestar Galactica reboot?
Yes, she very much enjoyed that.
PlayStation 5 and the new Xbox. They are a waste of space. And everybody, like tons of people, everybody that I kick with, talk to about all this stuff, they are blown away when I say I'm not getting the shit. It's a complete waste. We have barely scratched the surface of the systems that we have right now. They have only been out for like 5 or 6 years, and you're telling me right now you want to come out with another system? I mean, these joints cost $400 when they came out. So what? I'm supposed to pay $500-$600 for another thing that's just only slightly better than what I got at home? And then on top of that, the one you're coming out with won't even work all the way. That's your little tester to see what's wrong with it. Then you're going to come out with another version. Then you're going to come out with another version of that one. Then it's going to be the PlayStation 5 Slim. Then it's going to be the PlayStation 5 Slim Pro. Then it's going to be the PlayStation Ultimate. Stop it. Nobody wants it. A lot of people out there think they want it, but they don't. They're brainwashed. I could care less about those new systems that are coming out, and it's so annoying that they're bringing them out so soon. That's my thing. Sorry.
Hey, Jarf, are you a video game guy?
I am a video game guy, but I'm a retro game guy. So the most current system I have is the Wii. And really my jam is Super Nintendo. I just like me some side scrolling, some Super Mario World. And then in terms of the Wii Sports, that for me was the peak, like something that is more communal and can get people that are not traditional gamers into it. Playing some Wii tennis with my wife, especially now that we're under quarantine. It's rainy days when we can't go on a hike. It's Dance Dance Revolution up in here, baby.
Sweet Fancy Moses just thought of that's pretty good. That is something that's been asked about a couple times about Cosmic Geppetto, because we never talk video games on this show. And it's because I never had a game console growing up, because my dad kept swearing that if we got one, it would screw up the TV.
That's the most incredible excuse ever. I absolutely love that. Your dad was amazing.
No. You can't hook that in. It'll mess up the TV. It's like, all right, you old fart.
I mean, that is Old Man Yells at Cloud. However, I did break a laptop downloading a pirated Karate Champ video game on. If you remember that one where it was like you move the two levers like up, down, left, right, and it was like an unlicensed Karate Kid arcade game, and somehow it flipped my display 180 degrees and I couldn't get it to fix, and I had to get a new laptop. So who knows? Maybe your dad was right. It could have broken your TV.
You're who he was looking out for.
Yes, exactly.
Katie, it's your time to shine. It's been a while since we've done this. It's time for a Katie's question.
Katie, questions everything.
I want to know if you guys have learned anything surprising about yourself during quarantine.
I'll go first. No. Because this is what I do all the time already as it is. So no, I have not learned anything. I mean, okay, no, that's a lie. I did. I learned some new ways to come to stream I've met some new people. I've learned a lot of things through those people from being at home and streaming more and whatnot. And so, yeah, so I take that back. I lied. Apologies. I'm still a good person.
Jarf?
I mentioned earlier that I'm sharing a work, home, office with my wife. And what's been interesting for both of us is we're getting to see our work personas, which is not complete artifice, but it's not the same as our regular life personas. So I hear her leading these calls, and she hears me talking to our cystic fibrosis care centers, and she's like, "Wow, you were so nice on that call." I'm like, "Oh my, I guess I'm not nice normally. I don't know," but
no.
Thanks, Brad. But yeah, it's an interesting window into when we're not under quarantine. We commute to work. We spend most of our time at work, and then we come home. We're exhausted. We'll try to talk about what happened in the day, but who can even remember what happened over the whole 8 hours plus the commute of a day? So getting to see what your spouse does all day, it's kind of interesting.
Well, yeah, and the occurrences of the day are a lot different than how the little ways you interact. So I could see your professional voice and the way you deal with people is a hard thing to explain in a conversation. It's not even something that really comes up when they say, "How was your day?" And it's like, well, the way I manipulated Bob into feeling better about the job he did was I used a soothing voice and called him Sura. Whatever strategy you use. So that could be I imagine that being a very interesting way for you guys to see each other. For me, the thing I learned is, first, how over-reliant I've become on calculators in my daily life, because when my son comes up to me, he's like, "Hey, can you add these numbers and fractions together?" It's like, I don't know.
Oh, no.
It's also a thing where when you're helping kids out with homework, it's not just, the answer is 34. You actually have to walk through and show the work and help them. And also it's not just giving them the answer, it's helping the kids walk through. And it's one of those things where either using a calculator or just adding numbers up in your head. It's sort of like if somebody tells, if you can drive manual transmission, it's very easy to do when you're doing it. But then if you actually stop and try to explain how to lift up on the clutch and push down the gas just a little bit until you start going, it's really hard to explain that or even to do it when you're thinking about it. And that's the same as like, oh, well, my kid's doing 4th grade math. And he's like, okay, I got to add these fractions. Like, how do I explain this to this guy? That's been interesting. It's like, first off, I'm glad. It's like, hey, I'm so glad I can help him. Oh, it's 4th grade math. I really should be able to know how to do this, but also slowing it down to explain to a kid. So that's been interesting. What about you, Katie?
I apparently really love bad reality TV shows.
Oh, goodness gracious.
I know about myself. Love is Blind, The Circle. I started watching The Circle Brazil. There's a French one that I'm going to get into. Married at First Sight. Like all of them, I can't stop watching them.
Netflix has the formula figured out because I've been watching them too. Before you had to go handle stuff, I was going to pitch to you that our next show, we talk about, what was it? Too Hot to Handle or whatever. That one.
Oh, I watched that too.
Yeah, but I was going to say, you bring your husband on and I bring my wife on and we talk about those shows because I watched it with my wife.
I would listen to that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that show was crazy.
I recently rewatched Burning Love, which was Paul Scheer, and it was produced by Ben Stiller, and it was a really spot-on parody of The Bachelor. It might be 5 or 10 years old, but it had a lot of faces that you recognize from The Office and Good Place. Jennifer Aniston even had a cameo in the first episode, and really funny. But what makes it funny is it's obviously written by people who are familiar with the tropes of those shows, especially The Bachelor, because it has the crazy person, the virgin, the shy guy, but that just ramps up the idiocy of the characters tenfold, and it's fairly entertaining. It's on there's so many streaming services. It's on Pluto TV, which I had never heard of, and then ended up getting, and because it's a free service with ads. And it's like, oh, there's Burning Love. I remember like that. And it's like, oh, this actually still holds up, and damned if it doesn't take the piss out of these shows perfectly. Katie, that's another good Katie's question. We haven't done that for a while.
I know.
I have another spoof of reality TV to recommend. Unreal.
Okay.
Starring my big lifetime crush, Shiri Appleby.
Oh, that's supposed to be a really good show.
It's really good.
All right, I'll check it out.
It's like behind the scenes of like a Big Brother type show.
More of a Bachelor.
Yeah, I've heard it's a really good show. I think, didn't one of the writers for Buffy behind that?
Yes, that's what got me to check it out in the first place.
Marty Noxon.
Yes, Buffy and Angel. And yeah, it's really good. And it kind of deconstructs the whole idea of this kind of romantic reality show. And it's funny, a little bit dark. I mentioned Shiri Appleby. So yeah, check that out.
Guys, in the last, let's say last 12 months, has there been something geeky that you were looking forward to that disappointed you, and something geeky that exceeded your expectations? And I'm going to start because they're sort of related. Something that disappointed me, not because it was a bad movie per se, but just it just didn't catch fire the way I thought it was going to. The Harley Quinn movie.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it was a perfectly fine movie, but it was weird where everyone was so excited about the movie, and then when it came out, it ended up being a pretty good movie that nobody cared about, and it sort of made me wonder, it's like, why didn't this work? And the theories about it, partially I think it was trying to be too many things. It was a sequel to Suicide Squad without being Suicide Squad. Nobody liked Suicide Squad. And then it was going R-rated, which sort of worked but didn't work. And so it was like trying to be Deadpool. But then that relates to the thing that, for me, exceeded expectations is I just finished watching the first season of the Harley Quinn animated TV show, which was really good. And I'm still trying to figure out like why one works when the other doesn't. I mean, obviously the cartoon can play a little fast and loose with the reality, so it can have a half man, half shark, and can do things that would be budgetarily unadvisable. Does anybody else have thoughts on either Harley Quinn?
I thought the Harley Quinn movie was really good. I don't know why it didn't get the play that it needed, but I thought that thing was highly entertaining. And I haven't watched the cartoon, but all the trailers that I've seen for the cartoon look great. I just refuse to pay for another streaming app. It's not going to happen. I got too many as it is.
The first season is now on Sci-Fi Network.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm not paying for DC Universe either.
Awesome. Good. Thank you. That Harley Quinn movie actually took me for surprise by myself because, well, I like Margot Robbie and I like how she plays Harley Quinn. I enjoy it very much. I like the little twist with Joker breaking up with her and she has to go out here on her own and find herself. I thought, what's her name? Well, Huntress. The character looked like trash in the trailers. Like, I didn't think I'd like her, but she was my favorite character in the movie. I love how they did Huntress. I was disappointed in how they handled old girl who's supposed to be Batgirl, like my favorite version of Batgirl, but I get that they had to do that for the means to accomplish the movie that they were trying to do.
A little bit of trivia. An actor who voiced a character on several characters on the Harley Quinn TV show has been on Cosmic Geppetto podcast.
Oh, wow.
Matt Oberg, who plays Kite Man, and also KG Beast and Killer Croc, was on this show before. He talked briefly about doing an ad on a Macy's ad with Donald Trump because the world's insane. Katie, what about you? What's something that...
Wait, can I go next? Can I go next and you go in the cone of silence?
I'll be off for 30 seconds, so go for it right now.
Okay, so spoilers for The Rise of Skywalker. If you haven't seen The Rise of Skywalker, skip like a minute ahead. But my big disappointment is Rey Palpatine. Just... no, that's not the reveal we needed. That's pretty dumb. And I just really like the whole concept of Rey as a character so much more when she was the every woman and something that anyone could aspire to. And I really don't like the dynastic side of Star Wars. It's fun soap opera, but it doesn't have to all be that. So yeah,
I agree with you. Although I don't mind that she's a Palpatine because I actually called it first, and it's on my Facebook page. I can pull it up, date it and everything. All right. But I immensely enjoyed the idea of her being a nobody, because I know a lot of people didn't like Rian Johnson's version or whatnot, but I did, and I enjoyed that he opened up that world and said it doesn't have to be a Skywalker that fixed this world, but it can be a Skywalker that inspired us to get up. And I thought that was so dope. And with, the kid moving the broomstick with his mind and looking off in the sky, and Rey being what we thought to be no one, dude, I thought that was so much better.
Yep.
All right, I'm back.
We didn't spoil it for you, did we, Brad?
No. I just came back.
I'm gonna have to bring you on to the other show so we can talk about that whole Star Wars thing.
And you have to watch The Rise of Skywalker before you edit this episode.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going. I'll do it this week. Katie, what about you? Disappointments and exceeded expectations.
I was really excited about this show that was on Amazon Prime called Carnival Row.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
We watched like half the episodes, and I just I couldn't do it. I could not do it.
Isn't that a bad feeling when you're like, oh, right, I hyped that up on the podcast and I want to like it, but I don't.
Yeah. I mean, I may try again, but I just was having a really hard time getting into it. And Cara Delevingne, or however you pronounce her name, she's a terrible actress. She's garbage.
Oh, I love Kate.
She's so pretty and she's so bad.
Yeah, she stick to modeling or whatever it is that she does. Acting is not her thing.
Katie, we still need something that exceeded expectations.
Captain Marvel. I was hoping it was going to be good, but after the Wonder Woman debacle and how everyone loved that movie and I didn't, I cautiously optimistic about Captain Marvel, but I freaking loved that movie.
Awesome. This is why she's my bestie.
That's why. All right, Mike, what about you?
Let's go with the thing that exceeded my expectations. Don't think I have one. Watchmen, the HBO show. I really wasn't interested in watching it, but then a lot of people were talking about it, how it was good or whatnot, because I didn't dislike the movie, but I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I respect it. It's a well-made film. But I've never been a fan of The Watchmen. I still have not read the graphic novel, and that's a sin if you're a comic book fan. I just wasn't for it. Me and my wife watched it, and it's phenomenal. That show is really, really good, and they touch on a lot of things I was nowhere ever expecting this show to touch on, and it's got a great cast, and it picks up. It's actually a sequel to the comic book, not the movie. Really, really, really dug it. It caught me by surprise. A thing that's super disappointing that I was looking forward to for a very long time, so much so that I got it as soon as it came out, actually pre-registered and bought it, so it would be a digital download ready on my PlayStation 4 to play. Final Fantasy VII. Screw that game. Trash. All right. Everyone has ranted and raved about how amazing Final Fantasy VII is, and it is the game of all games. I tried to play it years later or whatnot, the original. I couldn't get past the first 2 hours of it because it looks like trash. That's understandable. It's an old game. Some games I could play despite their graphics, but Final Fantasy was not one of them. And I wanted to try it out because I played Final Fantasy X for the first time and I absolutely loved it. But I find out that they're making a remake, and it's going to be a remake of the whole game. And I'm like, all right, that's awesome. I'll just wait for that thing to come out. And these remake trailers are looking fantastic. I'm like, all right, this is exactly what I needed. I'm going to get to play this classic game with today's mechanics and stuff in it. And it is disappointing. It is I know games like this are supposed to be linear, but man, is this game linear. It takes away the whole aspect of farming, grinding. It has a great fight system, but you barely get to use it. And Final Fantasy is known for these quirky little story elements that they do, which is all fine and dandy because it's balanced by so much action that you get to do over this game that you're supposed to be able to put 100+ hours into. But you can't even do that because this is only part of the game, and they're making sequels to the game based off of the remake of the game. So they cut the original game up into 3 games. I'm not trying to do that, B. I'm not trying to do that at all. So yeah, severely disappointed.
Will there be a second season of Watchmen? Because it sounds like nobody's in a hurry to do that.
No, there won't be a second season. They already said that they're not doing it.
That's crazy because it was well liked.
It was supremely well liked. Well liked more than the freaking movie.
Most things are more well liked than the movie.
Yeah.
I know, Jarf, you have a hard out in a few minutes, and so I'm not going to, and we don't have, I think we pretty much hit the questions I wanted to.
I could do my exceeded expectations because I didn't do that when you were in the Cone of Silence.
Okay. Yeah, please.
Russian Doll and Jumanji The Next Level. So Russian Doll was something that was super hyped up. And so I thought it'll probably be good. And it's amazing. Definitely watch all the way through the end because it's just a great payoff. And Jumanji The Next Level, I won't talk a ton about it because I have a whole episode with returning guest Crystal Sparrow where we rant and rave about it. But that franchise has just been a delight and so much more fun than I expected. So those are my two. I want to know which one of those two Michael said yes to.
Jumanji, because it is phenomenal. That was another one, so I will ride your coattails on that one. Was not expecting it to be that good, and if people don't realize that is a trilogy, you're slipping. That is the third movie in the franchise. It would not be this good if we didn't get the first one with Robin Williams in it. But man, and I love how in that new movie they flipped their own formula on their head. I was like, how can you get better than what you did in the sequel? And then they said, I'll raise you 20 and did it.
Yeah, that's why it was a pleasant surprise because you expect diminishing returns with the sequel, but it actually brought in these surprising new things and they added Awkwafina, which is always a good look because she's hilarious.
Russian Doll is just a nightmare for me because she repeats same day over and over and over and over.
Oh yeah, maybe that's not a good recommendation to give people now.
We only have a few minutes left, and this has been fantastic as always, but we got to get everyone a chance to plug their pluggables. Katie, what are you up to aside from just trying to fix your house?
I am raising money per usual for Camp Paha. It's a camp for kids and young adults with disabilities. And I'm actually, this weekend I was supposed to run in a marathon relay with 4 other amazing women, and because of COVID, that's not happening. So I had this crazy idea that I was going to run each leg of the relay for the next 5 days. So that is what I am up to.
Well, as always, we support your efforts. You're making the world a better place. And we'll share all that information. Gosh, Katie, it's so great to have you on. I appreciate you taking the time. Mike, what about you? What do you have to plug?
New season of Chat and Draw starts next Monday on the 26th at 4 p.m. New guests, some returning guests, new updates because it will be going on Patreon now as well. And I am still working out how to get it onto Twitch. I know it's a simple problem, and I will fix it. But, getting it on Twitch as well. We'll have some announcements, some short fuse coming out here very soon on some stuff that I'm working on that I can't say, but pay attention to the short fuse page. You can always follow my YouTube page because I'm trying to build that up because we have all types of awesome video and content up there, along with a great show called The Good, the Bad, and the Nerdy, which will be on this Friday with some Star Wars talk. So, yeah. And I make comics. There we go.
All right, Jarf. Like your pluggables and wrap us up.
First of all, I'm so glad that y'all could do this tonight. This has been so much fun. This has just put a smile on my face today, and it's been a blast. So I look forward to the time when we can get the gang together again and face off with our nemesis, the Murder Hornets. Want to plug Joe versus the Minute, my Movies by Minute podcast about Joe versus a volcano, which I actually, as of recording last week, wrapped recording. So we still have episodes to release, and it's going to be airing through July. But that project on the recording side is finished. So that's my first time finishing a Movies by Minute podcast, which, unlike other formats, there is this sort of natural endpoint when you reach the end of the movie. So it's a really fun feeling, and I despite That's what my wife says about Movies by Minute podcasts being silly in general. It feels like a huge accomplishment, and it was a ton of fun. So definitely recommend people check that out on Twitter and Instagram at Joe versus Minute. And can't wait to come back for another 100 episodes of Cosmic Geppetto. Congratulations, Brad, on reaching 200 episodes of this crazy idea to get friends together and talk about the things we love. And listeners, thanks for joining us and making this show what it is. Like, your interaction is what gives us the excuse to get together and talk about our fandoms and have this fun. So until next time, we'll see you in the funny pages.
That wraps episode 200. This adventure, Katie might call it a journey, started January 29th, 2016. In the more than 4 years since, we have had incredible guests, astoundingly talented folks I knew from college and high school, fantastic artists I've been a fan of since childhood, new friends from the podcast community, writers, musicians, filmmakers pouring their hearts out to make the world more special and beautiful. I have been very lucky. I owe them all a huge thanks. But I have to give special, big thanks to Jarf Hardin, who was the first person I told when I started this endeavor. He was also the first guest. He makes the show better. He makes me better. Amy Kenerup. She brings so much to the show, both in content and behind the scenes. She is so darn cool. I'm pretty sure she can communicate with woodland creatures. When I started this show, I didn't know Mike Watson. He has become an important part of the program. He is a good man and a good friend. When Katie and I met, I had no clue how lucky I was. We became fast friends, but I never thought she'd want to be part of this foolishness. As often happens, I was wrong. She is a natural and brings so much. When I first had on Thaddeus Howze, I didn't know how vital he'd become to Cosmic Geppetto. His insightful takes on pop culture clicked with listeners, and he is now one of our most popular panelists. On a personal note, I proudly consider him a friend. Beth Reynolds had no idea what she was getting into. Shawn asked her to spare a couple minutes to record an intro and outro a few years ago, and she did such a great job that I haven't stopped pestering her ever since. She is one of the kindest souls I've ever known. Speaking of Shawn, he was the second person I told about the show. He didn't think he'd be able to contribute. Turns out, if not for what he brings, Cosmic Geppetto wouldn't be anything close to what it is. His music gives this show its character. I have way too much fun writing stuff for the Cosmic Geppetto players. My first thought is always, how can I pull Murren and Jessa into the shenanigans? They are a dream to work with. About a year ago, maybe a little less, I realized that my selections for music on these episodes was getting a little stale. And I was able to ask a friend of the show, C.S. Farrelly, if she would like to contribute. And I thought I was just going to do it one or two times and then ask other people, trying to get more people to join the fun. But her selections are so good and always makes the show better that I've just continued asking her to do so. If you've noticed, our musical dynamic has improved. It's all because of her. She's amazing, and I can't thank her enough for what she's done. Of course, I need to thank everyone who takes time to listen. There is a lot of entertainment out there, and it means so much that you let us into your lives. Next time on the Cosmic Geppetto podcast, Ben from the Pleasant Greens YouTube series joins me to talk about how he defeats online scammers. But until then, as Jarf would say,
we'll see you in the funny pages.
Subscribe to the Cosmic Geppetto podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever quality podcasts can be found. Rate and review us while there. Follow us on Twitter at Cosmic G Pod and we will follow you back. Unless you're a jerk. We don't follow jerks. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cosmic Geppetto. We love hearing your ideas for upcoming episodes. Email us at cosmicgeppetto@comcast.net.
Sweet Fancy Mose just thought of that's pretty good.